Good evening. Tonight we are going to analyze Pitch Perfect, a musical comedy from about 3 years ago?
4 years ago.
4 years ago. And so why don't we start by identifying the four through lines. The overall story is the big picture. Anybody want to summarize it?
They're trying to make a singing group and determine which ones will be in and which ones will drop out.
Okay, can we be a little more specific? We have
The world of a cappella competition.
okay, but what's this story about? That's like a world in which you could put a story or any story, but what is this story is about? What's going on? Where's the problem in this?
You have an idea.
Trying to win the collegiate a cappella competition.
Okay,
Yeah, I think it's.
and is there anybody in specifically?
What are you talking about? Specific groups that are against each other, or
Yeah, I mean,
the
basically you have a
all
girls versus
females
boys,
and-
or-
well, yeah, you have an all-female group that is trying to win the nationals, right?
After losing last.
Well, yeah, right, and that's why it's
Right.
A, no women group is there, all women group is won before, and B, they had rather disastrous previous year, so they're kind of trying to come back from a big loss to a win. So the Bellas are trying to win the national a cappella competition, right?
Right.
All right. So that pretty much nails, we've got the conflict based in there, not as much, but it's, we see exactly sort of close to what the goal is and all of it. There's obviously all the rivalry with the
Troubles.
yes, the troubles. Main character. Who is the main character in this, and how do we know?
what's her name? Becca?
Becca.
Yeah.
Becca. And why do we see
Becca and Bella.
Becca? Is there any other, or is she pretty much she's it? Okay, and who do we see as the influence character?
Well, I've got like 3 potential candidates.
Okay.
All right. And the problem is, well, there's the boyfriend. I believe his name is Jesse. Okay. And the reason I say 3 is because I think
Go on. What are the other two?
Aubrey,
Who is?
the blonde girl leading the group. I think her name was Aubrey, or was that the redhead girl?
The one with the
The blonde girl.
digestive issues.
Yeah. I think her name was Aubrey.
Audrey or Aubrey?
Aubrey with a B.
Okay.
Who?
And then
No,
who's
the redhead
third?
girl's named Chloe. Okay.
Right. The redhead's Chloe. And the third?
Well, I feel like that maybe that her father shares. I feel like it maybe could be a handoff between the father and Jesse.
All
I
right.
feel like maybe if it's Jesse, you may share that with the father.
All right.
Um,
Any thoughts from anybody else here?
I was leaning toward Jesse only because he seems to impact her with her personal stuff a little more than. He calls her on the fact that she runs, she's always pushing away, running away.
Okay.
And he's like, get it together or there's nothing here.
Okay.
And then she goes back, pursuit of the ends.
Okay. There's another good reason for thinking it might be him.
They also have the relationship.
They have a relationship.
Right, yeah.
Through line. Which is what kind of relationship?
Marginally romantic.
It's a romantic relationship. It's
Tenuous.
So they have a romance. So what is the relationship between Becca and Aubrey?
Protagonist and antagonist.
Well, that would not be a main influence
No,
relationship.
Right.
Well, the adversarial.
It is that, right, well, I mean, yeah, it probably is more objective, but it's about sort of competing over who has the better ideas to run the singing group. But
It seems more logistical in nature, right? Instead of emotional.
Right, because I think, remember, they're trying to win. And the big criticism, even from the very, very first time they're on stage, before Becca is even involved, is that they are singing exactly the same old stuff. It's very predictable, snooze fest. And I think that's the protagonist-antagonist tug of war over not control of the group, but the direction of the group, of trying to get it to win. And I think that's where Aubrey is really, got her interaction with Becca. Because it's definitely not that relationship does not grow at all.
But you do see Aubrey. She does have an arc. You see, this is a situation where I think that if Becca, if the impact character is Jesse, then Becca is the change character. If the impact character is Aubrey, then Aubrey is the change character. Becca's steadfast. But again, that could be that could just be objective or logistical in nature. So.
I mean, I suppose it could possibly be a little sub story, but it doesn't. There's not enough. I don't think there's enough there. I think it's more when you have a protagonist winning over an antagonist, or maybe not an antagonist. Maybe it's more of a context. Who knows? Eventually, if it's a success story, the antagonist or all of the other players basically fall out of. They're not going to have the answer. They're not going to have the solution. And so, I mean, and I'm using protagonist if it's a main character protagonist kind of thing, which this seems to be. But the main character will hold that, but whatever character holds that, the other ones basically fall by the wayside so that it can then be achieved. And that's what I think we saw, is we basically saw there's this big resistance, and ultimately, it falls apart until then at the very last, the last show, that's really just playing out what's already been decided. We get to see what's already been done. So it's not an epilogue, but it's close to an epilogue because they haven't actually won the prize yet, but everything is in motion it's not like they do something on stage like they do in that one point where it changes it up right at the last minute, and that changes. It happens actually before that, when they sort of pull together.
But pulling off the performance, on the stage is.
But there is no tension in that at all. I mean, there is no they are all
They're constantly.
they're performing. It is basically stop the show. I'm doing a musical number. Now it happens to be about musical numbers, so how well they do is relevant to the competition. So you have that slight benefit because, if they do really, really well, then they might win.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just answering that one last part. It's not a character development moment. That's all sort of done.
Well, whereas there is kind of a character for her in relationship to Jesse, there is that character development number in that she sings the Breakfast Club song.
Yeah.
Right. That's what finishes off the relationship through line.
Right.
Yes, exactly. But she's already there.
Mhm.
Well,
So they have the main character through line sort of is worked out,
Yes.
so completed before that show, and then you get the influence character and the relationship through line, and the overall story sort of finish up at that very end.
Mhm.
And the father I think he does. It's arguable that he does come in and act as sort of as that influence character, but only as a handoff character, like for 2 scenes.
I agree.
Right at the beginning, and the scene after she gets the really big, influence character blow off scene from him,
Mhm.
and she goes to say, "Yeah, but he's more like a guardian in that capacity."
And isn't he there just to like give her a chance to go over her main character stuff?
Yes,
The
yes,
character
it really is. But you could say that's a little bit of an influence character stuff because of the relationship,
Mhm.
because he's just helping her discuss the relationship issue that she has, the personal thing. But it's really not about her and Jesse, just about relationships, and which is kind of where she has a problem. She won't let people in.
Right. Well, it's because kind of the lesson that Becca needs to learn is seeing things through. Just see it through. And
Right.
and so
And
the
of
father
course-
makes that point, and then Jesse makes that point metaphorically by making her watch
No,
the end of
literally.
Breakfast Club.
No, literally.
Okay.
He's just, what, you don't watch it? I mean, he's
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just-
chastising her, and he's saying that's the best part, you know.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think it's very specific. Specifically, the 2 of them are dealing with it, and he's coming at it from a different perspective, but it's about her, the thing that she can't seem to do, which is to follow through on anything.
Mhm.
Okay, so it does seem to be more Jesse and maybe a little bit of father, and definitely not Aubrey. Okay, so that brings us over then to main character resolve, change or steadfast. In the context of this, you were saying that you felt that she was a change character. Why do you see her a change character, and how is Jesse a steadfast character?
Well, she's he keeps making the point to her, you always push people away, and so when she's turns around and goes back to the girls and hopes that they will let her back in, then she's embracing the relationships instead of embracing friendships rather than pushing them away, and again, metaphorically, she sings the Breakfast Club song, which
Well, she watches the movie
right,
all the way to the end, realizes it's exactly, is affected by it by the same way he's affected by it,
Mhm.
and then ultimately sort of lets him know by incorporating it in the musical number.
yeah, and she just stops pushing him away, and then she embraces him and kisses him at the very end.
Right, but we also see the relationship is back on when he does the
Yeah.
the last bit from the Breakfast Club.
Jed Nelson.
Yeah, Jed Nelson's shot. Okay. How about doer or beer? Main character approach. Is Becca a doer or a beer? And give some examples. So what is this stuff? What is it that's hers? That's not about the Bellas. That's the
Making
stuff.
sick beats.
Mhm.
Making beats.
Making beats.
Doesn't have to be a doer in this movie because they're performing and they're trying to change they're trying to change the people to vote for them.
Well, the question about the door beer is really just about Becca. Sorry.
Yeah, it's
Becca
very
of the
confusing.
Bellas.
Yeah.
Yes. Just so it's primarily about Becca, the main character, as opposed to the group. Yeah, the group is definitely trying to win a competition or win enough competitions to eventually win the big one.
Here's the thing: coming into it, it seems like she's defined by her attitude. She's got the kind of the goth, fingernails, and she's wearing the too many ear studs that upsets the blonde girl, and and she's copping an attitude with her father, and she says, "Oh, hey, I'm going to go to the activities fair with my best friend," and so just in the early part, I don't see a whole lot of doing this. I mean, yes, she's going to the she's going to the record store trying to get a job, but even then she's
No, she's already got the job.
Okay, well, all right.
She's there. The two of them they already have the jobs.
Yeah.
She's just going to now.
It
Now
just-
that's a really good point. Now look at that scene. Look at the scene where they're putting away the albums. So that's main character influence character relationship, and look at the two different approaches that they have.
He's reaching out. He's trying to make her laugh.
By
Putting album covers in front of his face.
right, basically he's doing all sorts of different things, trying to get her attention, trying to make her laugh, trying to engage her, and she's just sort of stonewalling him as much as she can. She's but she's the they kind of peg her right away that she's kind of the gothy one, the dark one, that she's sort of all into. And the music thing, it's like she puts on her headset and it's all internal. We don't even hear most of what's her singing. It's like, wow, we never heard her singing on those tracks.
It's true, but you look at the shower scene, and she's just singing to herself, and it's the red-haired chick who like comes up and says, "Sing with me, sing with me, sing." So she's pushed into
And
doing
that's the overall story, because the Bellas
Right.
need girls that can sing.
right, but
That's
she,
overall story, though.
but in terms of her own personality, it's like anytime she, especially in the first half of the movie, anytime she does anything, she's kind of pushed into it, or
right. She's very reluctant.
the riff off or whatever that was called. She's not jumping in to participate. She kind of waits and exchanges looks with the guy, and then finally there's a moment where
Right.
she jumps in, but it's sort of like she's definitely checking her feelings first before she jumps into the riff.
So you're saying what?
So based on that, I think she's a beer. I think she's
Okay.
a beer that you see transition into more of a doer in the latter half of the film.
I think that sounds
Yeah.
consistent, which of course fits. I'm going to jump over here for a second. What domain do we think the overall story is?
Activity.
Activity. Yeah.
You said-
Which is where you were going with that. I absolutely
yeah.
think the overall story is here. So what that means is that it's a start story, which is exactly her holding back and needs to learn to step up. I mean, that's what the whole movie is all about. You see the example you just gave about the sing-off or whatever they call that thing. And then, even up to the end, her stepping in, and it's very tentative, but she's always keeping herself back. She's got these great ideas and such, but she holds back.
Mhm.
So, yeah, and eventually she steps up and takes charge.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that's very consistent with that, the main character growth. So I didn't want to go there because that's a pretty obvious one, but that's why I wanted to do it here first. Problem-solving style, linear or holistic, and why? I mean, are there enough examples that you feel are there? So I'll shout at once.
Yeah.
Maybe linear. If I do this, then Dad will let me go to LA.
Right, that's pretty much if Dad lays it down, it's like, okay, if I do this, that. If I don't do that, then this happens. Cause effect.
I know it's not a requirement of Dramatica that the impact character is the opposite, but when you think about the record shop, and he's, the guy's, putting a record in front of his face. It's almost like he's the one who's trying to change the relationship between them. I don't know if that's a good example. But,
Well, that's because he's trying to change the relationship between them,
okay, yeah.
the relationship that they're having, as opposed to looking to the relationships to understand, to find balance. That's where the holistic is. It's not about a particular relationship. It's about the relationship between everything. Just sort of think of the Obi-Wan, everything's connected. It's, that's kind of more of the holistic way of looking at it. It's about balance. I think she's definitely seems to be more linear thinker. It also seemed to be for us, male audience, pretty easy for us to identify with her.
Yeah.
So I think that's also a big clue, because when you can't identify with them, it's pretty obvious that happens, occasionally. Story driver, actions or decisions? Which do actions drive decisions, or decisions drive actions? Examples.
What do you like the action?
Action. What is the action? What's an inciting event? What are some of the actions that?
Well, I mean, they win at the end, I guess would be the overall story. But she smashes the window with the trophy. Seems to
That's a big one.
Well,
Okay.
Arrest.
her arrest.
Well, it's that activity.
Well, what changes things in the first, in the final act, is the discovery that the
The
second place winner was actually a high school student.
Right.
Now that counts as an action, right? I mean,
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, notice, did we see the decision of the competition? No, but the movie was over. That's a really big indication that it's an action.
Mhm.
I mean, because really, it's about, can the Bellas be successful? And their last performance was successful, as opposed to the snooze fest.
Mhm.
I mean, even the announcers were enjoying it.
They were the Greek chorus,
Yes,
and one of them went on to direct the sequel.
Right. but the point is that it was quite engaging, quite successful. On every measure of how they did by comparison to the last time, there were a complete success.
Well, so would we count the inciting incident then as the girl throwing up on stage,
It
Oh.
might be.
or that I'm not sure about, because it
I think
seems like
that's just a prologue.
yeah
I think
because
that's backstory, because I think it's really, it's sort of the
beginning of the school year, and
Bella coming to school and maybe either rejecting that, or it's, the one that's the big one is when she is singing and is heard, and they're like, okay,
Yeah.
we need you. Now that might be the first act turn, but it also might be the inciting. It feels more like an inciting event, like everything's sort of setting it up for boom, that. And then you have the major set pieces, one per act.
Yeah, the
You know,
auditions.
And so I think that so I think that seems to be an action driven. So, okay. How about story limit, time lock, or option lock?
Option lock.
And why?
Not for the absence and one is the other. So, it's like Einstein said, she keeps repeating the same repertoire,
But
expecting different results.
That may be the option part, but that's not the lock part. Make sure what is the limit? Remember they were talking about the story limit. So what is the limit to that option? It's pretty simple.
the competition.
Well, they have several competitions that they have to meet. I mean,
Oh, right.
okay.
The different stages.
you have to put a group together. You have to, perform, and so coalesce. Then they have basically, 5 things that they had to do. And that was,
Yeah, they could have turned it,
but it wasn't. It's not an option. I have no idea what date that happened.
right. I know.
So
I was
it's
gonna
definitely
say-
not a time lock.
Okay.
It's not a time lock. A time lock is explicit.
Okay.
Or it's a fixed amount of time, and you say, we only have 2 months, we only have 2 weeks, we only have 1 week, So you have to be really clear because it's a limit.
Is there a reason why sometimes that seems really amorphous? Like
Yeah, because a lot of people don't want to really push it. When you push it, it brings everybody's attention to when the end is coming up. And if you want to create tension about the end, then you heighten it. And if you really just wanted to sort of flow along at a normal pace, then you really don't make much of it.
Because I always feel like that one's just like,
Well, they could have easily made it, well, because they wanted to make it more than just the competitions. You know, there are certain events that they have to do in a year. They have to do you pick your teams. You know, they have the tryouts. Then you have the first sing-off. Then they have, I mean, how many do they, you know, they have a certain number of events.
Formal thing too.
And they just didn't go at the very, they could have said at the beginning, here's our calendar of events. We have this, and then we have this, and we have this, and we have this, and we have this. Then basically it's the roadmap, and everybody knows exactly where it's going.
okay, so this maybe it's a digression, but like usually time lock, it's like, all right, we got 24 hours, whatever.
Mhm.
But in option lock, a lot of times it's something that's not explicit. In retrospect, you're like, oh, okay, well, these were the options that they had to go through. I don't know what I'm trying to get at, but I just wonder why there's that difference. You know, it's not like,
Well, time is kept track of differently than space. I mean, it's kind of like saying, okay, New York to LA. Unless you have the little map that shows how far you're going, which sometimes they do,
right.
and that's the equivalent of a tick, 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 tick. You know, that's that one that it's very explicit about, you know. But you could just say, okay, well, now we're in Albuquerque, now we're in such and such. You know we're closer. Rain Man doesn't make a really big deal about how far or close they are, but they are progressing toward Los Angeles. And when they hit Los Angeles, that's when the sort of climax happens.
is that like a linear thing where you don't really think about the space that you're going through? Or?
A linear thing as
I just wonder, like, for me, like, time lock, oh, I want to see all the minutes go by, but the option lock, I'm kind of oblivious to it until the end.
No, they have a different feel. A time lock feels like you're scrambling and you're running out of options. You have all sorts of options, but you're going through them, and you can't have enough time to get through you have more options than you have time. So it feels like you want to get through as many options as you can.
Okay.
And so the sense of it is a lot different. If an option lock, you have as much time as you want, but you have a fixed number of options. So it's more of again, it's not a time-based one, so you're not feeling it. The reason in films it has a big difference is that it's a time-based medium. You know, you've got a fixed amount of time that the movie is. So the medium itself has a limit. But if you do this in like a spatial art, it would almost be like if you say in a museum, you've got 15 minutes to go through and see as much of 2 hours to see as much of the Louvre as you want. You know, which of course you could spend a week in. So suddenly all you're doing is you're so focused on time, and you're looking at as many things you can, but you can't possibly see them. But your sense is time is right there, as opposed to saying, you know, you're at the Louvre, you can see pick 6 rooms.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and then you can just spend as much time in that room as you want, but then once you leave that room, you can't go back.
Okay, you only have 5 left. Okay.
Right. So it's a different sense, and that's one of the reasons why people pick a time lock story or an option lock story. They have the experience is different for the audience because it's a different unit of measure.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you.
Sure. Story outcome, success or failure, why, excuses, reasons, supporting arguments.
Feels like a happy ending.
It's a success. They win the
Right.
competition.
And we know that because,
Well, the epilogue
They have
says the winners of
trophy,
last.
Oh, right.
well, and there's a huge trophy standing in front of them. But yes, the winners get to choose and they all confer. So we know that they are the winners. That's basically it. And good or bad? What's the story judgment? Good or bad, and why?
Good. She's right there in the middle of all of them. Friends.
And she's right. She hasn't given up on
She
it.
hasn't given right. She's still there.
He's following
Yeah.
through.
So this is 6 months later, and she's still with the Bellas.
She's still in college.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. Okay. Very good. Okay, that was easy. So we've already got our domains. So we have our overall story here, our relationship story here, main characters and fixed attitude, and our overall in our influence character and situation. Let's discuss these. Well, how do we see the influence character and situation? What about his? Well, it's really clear. It's really, really easy.
But
He's a boy?
No,
he's in the trouble.
He's the trouble.
Yes.
He's in the trouble.
Oh, trouble, sorry.
Yeah.
he's in the trouble.
making
You
trouble.
cannot have a relationship with someone who is in trouble. I mean, it's like it's a very, very simple, explanation and very clear.
Yep.
And they make a point of it over and over again. And you can see how she wants to go further, but then she can't because he's in trouble. So yeah, that's I think is. I know it's not obvious until you put it in this context, and suddenly it's like, oh, well, of course. And if you look in the situation, you've got past, present, progress, and future. And it's like, okay, I'm getting ahead, but if it was future, it's like you don't have a future if you mess with.
Well, not only that,
trouble.
but he even talks
Oh,
about.
wow.
He even says at one point, we're going to get together, we're going to have children, and all that. He says some line like that. It's already predicting a future for the two of them. So.
Right, but I mean, in terms of the influences, it's like you can't. There's no future here because I'm in trouble, and even though you want a future, but you can't have a future because of my situation is like. And if he was no longer a trouble, then it wouldn't be a problem.
Oh, and past, he brings out all these old movies.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it's
Presence in the in the radio station, and in progress, how things are changing. Well, it's the ups and downs of the emotional thing, and also his progress in his own group, I guess.
yeah, possibly. Okay, so let's figure out. Well, let's look at the concerns then. So we've got the same groups. We want to figure out which set of 4 concerns: past, understanding, memory, and developing a plan, or how things are changing, doing, impulsive responses playing a role, or future, obtaining innermost desires and changing one's nature, or present, gathering information, conceiving an idea, and contemplation. And we have an argument for.
I don't know. It's not for concern, but when they sat down and Becca says, "Okay, let's all, reveal something about ourselves." I thought, oh, learning, yeah. So signpost there, but it seems like the goal is to win the competition.
Yeah, which
And
is
that's
an
obtaining. Yeah. And you certainly see a lot of approach versus attitude.
Well, I mean, look at Aubrey. I mean,
Yeah.
holy crap.
There's a lot of relationship. Change it to something.
Right.
When they can.
And you definitely see, for her, signposts of memories that's invoked when she talks to her dad about her stepmom.
Step monster.
Right.
She just wants to
And then later on says, well, you didn't do a very good job with it. And impulsive responses, very strong signposts with the boyfriend. Contemplations, but it really seems she's driven by what she desires. She wants to go to LA. She wants to be a DJ. She wants to, but she also has,
Well, she wants a career in music.
she wants a career in music, but she also kind of has a subconscious need for female friends, which she's kind of in denial of until she realizes that she does need
Well,
it.
or other people in general.
Mhm.
That's just, that's kind of like her thing is she pushes people away, and she just needs to be.
Closure, denial, hope, dream. It's all there.
So let's move to the software, and why don't
I can do it on there.
you can do there, and I will do it on the big screen for everybody else.
I thought this was going to be a lot harder movie to analyze.
Well, I didn't know. I hadn't seen it, so. But yeah, it's done nicely.
Considering there's about 40 minutes of
Yeah, that's
musical numbers. There's not a lot of time for the
Right, but they
dramatic
really.
material, but they really.
Well, we'll see.
Jam it.
See, it might be difficult to get down to the nitty gritty, although I
feel like the
suspect it
influence of
won't be.
characters.
Just have this
Is it the
this feeling
it's the usual?
that. So it's just kind of like down the line. Overall story, that's activity, and obtaining. Okay, so save this. Okay, and all right, so let's go to the theme browser so we can look at this and see things in a little broader sense. So now what we want to do is we want to pick the issues and problems and all that stuff. So let's go to, you want to do overall story or main character first?
Main character.
Let's go to main character. What a great idea. So we've got just the future here, and openness, preconception.
Well, that's the impact character.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's the impact. There we are.
Oh.
Obtaining. Sorry about that. Obtaining, attitude, approach, self-interest, and
That's
morality.
That's overall.
That's overall story. Are we going main character?
Yes.
Three's a charm.
Okay. No. It says main character. I see concern. So did you?
Did I
always
choose
flip.
the
It's
wrong?
funny. I did the same exact thing.
Did you do? Do
Oh,
you
how
do
funny.
instead of beer?
That's
I
what I
didn't
thought
even
it was.
notice.
No.
I wasn't even following you. I just did it subconsciously.
Yeah, you need to undo.
I did a doer. Yeah. I did a doer. Okay, yes. Exactly the same thing. How funny is that? It's hilarious. Okay, so all right, main character, innermost desires. So closure, denial, hope, and dream. Then with under closure, we have consider, reconsider, pursue, and avoid. Under hope, we have logic, feeling, control, and uncontrolled. Under denial, we have conscience, temptation, help, and hinder. And under dream, we have faith, disbelief, support, and oppose. So are there any we can include or exclude at this point? Do you feel strongly for or against anything?
The strong.
Include.
And she's very conscious of the fact that she avoids things. So I think that might be a symptom.
Yeah.
I mean, he says, when they're talking about the movie, she says, yeah, I don't want to. I know I avoid people. So she seems to be aware of that. That's a problem.
Or is it that her pushing away is the avoidance? Like he just says it flat out. Maybe.
Pardon? Yeah, you're saying is the difference between the symptom and the problem?
Yeah, I like closure though, for sure.
Yeah, I'd go with either closure. Hope and dream are there, but I think her issue is more closure.
Yeah.
I mean, there's certain closure about her parents' divorce.
Well,
Where
if
it's
you
at.
if you look at, I mean, conscience, temptation, help, and hinder, those don't seem to be anything that she's dealing with. I mean, on a regular basis.
On a personal basis, either.
Yeah, on a personal basis, right. Just like I don't see faith and disbelief, support and oppose. Logic and feeling, control and control maybe a little bit, but I think the consider, reconsider, pursue, avoid is a pretty good quad. So let's just, rather than choosing the element yet, unless somebody has a specific choice, let's just choose closure as the issue. And then take a peek at what we have in the overall story and see what we've got available to us now. So now we've got pursue, avoid, control, and uncontrolled under self-interest, and consider, reconsider, logic, and feeling under approach. Do either of those seem to be a better set?
Well, yeah, avoidance, pursuit, control, and uncontrolled, right?
Yeah.
Seem a lot stronger.
I think so.
Like who has
Especially since
control
you've
of your
got
group and
right, you've got, which would mean that controlled and uncontrolled would be the symptom
yeah.
response, or response and symptom, whichever way we want to see it. But
So how is avoid the problem then in the overall story?
Well, it's just like the typical storytelling where it's like trying to keep somebody else from winning or trying to keep somebody else from being in charge.
I mean, look at
And
it.
at the end, they all gang
think of it
together to
outside of just the Bellas. Think of it in terms of the Trebles, and think of all these other groups.
She's I mean, the Bellas are avoiding doing material.
It's true.
Oh,
Yeah, but again, it's not just about the
No, just
Bellas. But yeah,
to put it in there.
right.
Right.
Well, so is, and control definitely seems to be the response.
Well, no, I think that would be the symptom. The response would be uncontrolled,
Well, okay, so you've got
which would make,
right,
which
of
would make
course,
avoidance.
of course, which is why she throws out, basically.
Yeah.
It's exactly the
Well, it's her control. Yeah, it's
letting go of her control. Basically, she got
Falls.
But getting rid of the uniforms and letting the girls, just bust loose on the stage. Rebel Wilson, when she busts loose.
Yeah, she's.
And when Anna Kendrick busts,
right.
goes out of control.
That's when
They have a better performance.
Right. So if we choose choose control for the overall story symptom, I think we're down to a single story form.
Approach, the catalyst of approach. Okay.
That definitely seems to be a pretty good one. I'm just going to drop in our character names in here so we have them. Perfect.
Well, I would not have picked self-interest specifically.
Oh, but if you look at, what's his name?
What's his name? Hammer or
Yeah, I mean,
what's his name?
my life is
Buster.
better.
Bumper.
I mean, and as well as Aubrey. I mean, just hugely self-interested, and they're the two strongest, characters in there. I mean, the father's, he wants what's best for, he's interested. He's a teacher. He wants his daughter not to drop out. She wants to go off and do, leave school and go off to Hollywood. And so you've got a lot of characters who are really very. Look at the guy running the radio station. I mean, very self-interested.
Oh, and the guy running the auditions, he said, I've been, rejected by the army, shoved into, but so I'm doing this because, this is where I feel like I belong or something, whatever he says.
Jesse, I.E. or E?
I think with the guy, it's just E. It's cool.
All right, so that means, so if we look at our, now let me just actually bring up the report because it'll be a little easier to see. So we have our influence character, Jesse. He's defined by a situation concerned with the future. His issue of openness versus preconception, I think openness is really good for him because he definitely seems to be all about being really open and expressing himself, and the fact that she's not, he's able to like basically call her on that is, again, makes him really strong as an influence character. His symptom is control and response is uncontrolled. And his problem is hinder. I mean, he's sort of his drive is when people make things a little tougher for him. So he likes a challenge, basically. And she's definitely constant. He's motivated by that.
Well, he says to his roommate? It's like, okay, you're in the group, but please don't be weird. Or, he's always telling them not to be weird, which is an expression of don't hinder things with your, weirdiness.
Yeah. We see his unique ability, again, openness, so that's a double dose. Again, for being a comedy, that's not a bad thing, because you don't have to have those levels of subtlety. Critical flaw of denial, which would be, see a whole lot of that, but we don't see a whole lot of
His denial, or is there denial attributed to him?
She's denying.
I think
him.
when she denies him
Yeah.
is what that is.
So
Yeah.
Kind of slows down his influence.
Yeah, I think it's exactly what that is. And then benchmark of how things are changing. And I think that,
Or is it that she's denied from having a relationship with him?
well, that she, well, no, I think it's, she won't, she can't have a relationship with him. That's sort of, I think it's the Bella trouble thing. No, I can't. So that sort of calms it down. The relationship we got in manipulation of psychology with the concern with changing one's nature. Yeah, commitment versus responsibility. Well, commitment part, I think that's part of the whole.
They're committed to their.
Well, not only to the relationship, not only committing to something and following it through. Watching a movie
That's
and
it.
following it to the end.
Mhm.
You know, that is, and I think what we see here is in the relationship, it's really focused on like the issue on down, and not nearly so much on a concern and on the domain in terms of the storytelling.
Is there the thing too, where like that's the goal is like for them to become?
Yeah, for them to become a couple, sure, to change their nature as two music lovers. And we see that the symptom of control, again, I think that's part of the, I keep on going back to this trouble thing, but I think that's part of it, them not only having to keep themselves in control, but others being basically constraints. Think of it as in terms of constraints. And response when they're, the reaction, or when they're able to do things that are just more free and outside that world, like the little bit of flirting that they do in the radio station on occasion. Although you see the problem of a symptom of control, when she feels like he's trying to control her, that creates conflict in their relationship. When he's, and he's there waiting for her. It's like, and she's like, oh, okay, you gotta break this off, And the problem again in the relationship is temptation, is doing something that you're not supposed to be doing. Because of course he wasn't nearly as tempting when he was overtly available, and then when he became one of the troubles, there's something about, now she's flirting with disaster, and there's sort of that.
Could it be also too like the two of them don't mix on taking the easy way? Like she'll just stop watching a movie halfway through because it's just easier to go on to something else. He doesn't understand that. Like,
Yeah,
it's kind of like a motivation towards the commitment. That difference between the two of them is, one is more given to temptation than the other.
yeah. No, actually, I think that's a far more mature answer. Far more nuanced. Yeah, no, I think that's probably a better answer. Because in this case, it is a problem, and ultimately, sort of doing what's right, not necessarily what's easy, is what brings them together, which is the solution of conscience. Catalyst of rationalization, and I think you see the.
I think also in terms of conscience, I think when she does sing the, "Don't You Forget About Me" song to him, you get a sense, there is that, her conscience is bothering her from the way she treated him earlier, and so I think that does describe the arc, the relationship arc that she.
Rather than just taking it in and accepting it, she's giving it back and making a public statement in the biggest way she can that allows him to know.
Playing a role, I like that.
Right.
A signpost to actually, the first moment between them is he sings to her from the car, or what was it? She was in a taxi, and
no, he was in a taxi. She was standing there with her stuff.
Unloading.
Yeah, when the girl is telling her where she's living, and then she sort of, her attention is on him as he's in the car singing to her.
I would take that as conceding an idea.
Yeah. No.
And then playing a role, that's what happens in the music shop or the radio station. Mm-hmm. He's putting the album cover.
Yeah, playing, and he takes him down, and his face is the same expression.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I think that works nicely. And then we've got our overall story, activity, which is again the singing competition, acapella singing competition, trying to win the nationals. Self-interest, they want to do it for themselves. Everybody's in it for themselves. Almost every single woman on that team has their own self-interested reason why they're doing it. And they kind of, I'm just trying to get away from my boyfriends. She's got all those hunky boyfriends in the pool. So it's the indicator of actually who she's normally hanging out with.
I'm actually surprised at how much I enjoyed watching Rebel Wilson. She's that funny. But the counterpoint of morality seems like, we're pulling together as a group.
Right, the group.
Yeah, we're doing it for the group.
Yeah, and I think there's a really I think because the nature of it being a comedy, where it's spending a lot of its screen time is in the theme, in the thematic arguments, and that's where you get the self-interest versus morality, and that's really, I think, with attitude and approach. That's really well explored. Virtually, even the commentary, from the two commentators are making those kinds of observations, about each other and about acapella singing, and so I think that's pretty funny. Again, so here we've got. The problem is avoidance or prevent. That's the other way you can look at it, trying to keep somebody else from winning. or avoid making the mistakes. In the Bella's case, avoid making the mistakes of the previous year. I mean, they explicitly? I think they explicitly say that or something, or it's said about them. I can't remember.
And it's that avoid, but that's what John said originally was they're avoiding any new material because
Right.
of the one girl's massive insecurity, and her little father issues.
I gave her that one line.
But she had 2 lines referring to her father.
That, yeah. It was about
Can't take the heat, don't get out the way.
and it was all about
Yeah.
avoidance. Yeah, it was like, well,
Yeah, and if at first you don't succeed,
Leave.
pack your bags.
Yeah.
Avoid, yeah.
avoid.
Yeah.
So,
That's really good.
and the solution is to go for it, pursue it. Really don't just. And you saw that the part of the solution, with the kernel of the solution, was in the semifinals, where where
She does
Becca
the remix herself.
does the little remix. She goes for it because she's looking, and it's like everybody's falling asleep.
Crickets.
And so, and then they got, reaction. It was just the obviously the tension between the two was also visible. And,
Right.
And that's where the symptom response kind of interceded on that potential solution.
right, exactly.
Control.
Control being the problem, and her popping
Being
out
uncontrolled. Yeah.
uncontrolled. I think you see that over and over again. Is where you got the Bumper. Is that his name?
Oh,
So he and Aubrey are 2 really, really, really control freaks. And you see the tension that it does, and when some freedom is given, and suddenly a lot happens, and the fact that you even see a really good part of that is the roommate, who has a great singing voice, and he does have that other part. He has that great singing voice, but he's not even given an opportunity because the control is like, no. Catalyst of approach. I think that's where I think you see the biggest conflicts between in the Bellas between Aubrey and Becca is all about approach, but you also see it with the other girl, with Chloe, because she's sort of like, yeah, I think that's a we got to try some. So if anybody wants to try a different approach, which when they're allowed a free form environment like with a sing-off thing, it works really well. And then the inhibitor obligations, like you signed this agreement, you took the pledge, you took the oath, you have to stick to it. So not just pretty much any creativity, any possible, and the benchmark of doing. And I think just even if you just think of what material are they doing, what inventiveness are they doing? Are they doing the same thing over and over? That's okay. That really
Gathering
fits us.
information. That's like the activities fair and the auditions, I guess.
Auditions, yeah.
Doing his rehearsals.
Obtaining
Obtaining
is the winning.
Well, the
and
obtaining,
losing.
the obtaining
And
is
losing first.
is
Right?
losing first and then getting
getting
a chance
back in.
to advance.
Right.
And then
Understanding that they have to change this
Right.
repertoire.
Exactly.
they finally achieve.
Understanding is that's the sitting around and talking about, let's understand who we are and where we're coming from, and that we need to figure out something different. Yeah. And for the troubles, it's understanding that their leader is a not nice person, self-interested
Yeah.
bugger. Okay, main character. We've got the girl with the, sort of the goth girl or the dark girl who's really concerned about her own innermost desires, her dream, her desire to be making music and going to Hollywood, but really about making music. She wants closure. She wants to finish school, get off and go and on for a new thing. She's all about closure. She stops things down before they get a chance to move on.
Just kind of closed up.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. The symptom is consider. So she looks at something. She goes, no, or I'm going to consider it now. But then when she reconsiders, it's like, okay, well, maybe he's not as dorky as I thought he was. Or maybe this group isn't as useless as I thought they were. Maybe actually I kind of want to have some girlfriends, or when for her, and she's frequently forced to reconsider.
Yeah.
People always make it very difficult for her. Her unique ability, again, closure. Perfect, again, simple story. The fact that they line up like that makes it just sort of doubly obvious, which is one of the reasons why we're having zero difficulty figuring this one out. Critical flaw of preconception. Now, is that, well, she has a whole lot, she has a preconception about what school is, about, her dad, about,
About acapella singing, she thinks it's
well, all of it. I mean, she has this idea of what she wants to do, and it does not involve any of the things that she's finding at school.
And also Aubrey's preconception about her, just based on what she looks like and her attitude. So
Yeah. And I like the benchmark of impulsive responses because, she's pretty bottled up and does not. This is one I think where she's really tight and loosen up and then become a lot more responsive, just be, a lot more impulsive. As opposed to one where someone's really sort of all over the place and has to sort of get it under control, or they slowly do.
it always takes her a minute to jump in.
Right.
You know.
Well, she's she's considering. She's always thinking about things. And then we have memory. I mean, I think the closest thing you see a little bit about that about the dad, and the stepmom, and yeah, I think this looks really excellent. Let's see what do we have for our goal of obtaining all that stuff. Yeah, it's the winning. Consequence of changing one's nature. Well, what would be? What's the forewarning? Impulsive responses. Well, I think you see that really well in Aubrey.
Yeah. Well, the consequence of losing is she's going to graduate without, having won the competition.
Well, and just in general, it's like people are going to be losers.
Yeah.
And they're not going to be, they're not going to be part of a group. They're not going to be, just going to be kind of like they were coming into it, except this is seen as, the next year they're not going to be there. It's not going to be a balance. That seems to be like that. They probably wouldn't, because the first time they barely made it through. Only two of them.
I guess everyone else
Signed up.
graduated, and there's only two left.
No, I think they graduated, and the other ones didn't sign up.
Oh, that's right. There was one other who said, "Oh, you're,
Oh no, that was one who had tried out for the previous 3 years, and then they said, "I'm not. You don't want. You want me now, but you wouldn't take me. No way." No, that's why they didn't get anybody else except those two, and we don't know if it's because they all graduated, or it was just that nobody else wanted to. Because the only reference I think they made about was that it's going to be taken over by two of them. So maybe it is that the rest of them graduated. I'm not sure. But, but that if it fell apart, it would be gone because Aubrey was graduating. They didn't say if Chloe was, but probably.
and she's got her notes."
The notes. Requirement of doing. Well, they've got to, you've got to sing. You've got to go through all those competitions. Cost of the future. interesting. I think. You could say, in some sense, you could say that for Bella, that there was a cost in the future because she had this future all lined out. She wanted to go in California and stuff, and she kind of lost that because she replaced it. But it was it was something that was really of high value to her. But the innermost desires, all these girls now have real strong girlfriends. Really strong connection.
There seem to be a lot of preconditions. Well, especially the don't sleep with the troublemakers, but precondition of how things are changing in progress. Requirement of doing, prerequisite of playing a role. Precondition how things are changing.
Well, the prerequisites for, I think, all of the different groups is that they sort of have, when they're performing, they all have that certain look or whatever. You certainly see with the Bellas, there's a lot more. So you have this role that you have to play to be a Bella, looks this way, acts this way, even though how things are changing wouldn't be a precondition. And that's one of the things that they eventually, get past is that they try something different, but they're still playing roles. I'm not sure about the precondition.
She won't let things change.
Well, but I mean, right, you have to play the role of a Bella. Right. And a Bella is this thing.
But it's the lack of change. It's like don't change things
the
up.
Lack of progress.
That's my insistence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how it's restricting the goals.
Yeah, she won't allow the group to progress.
Right. Exactly.
And the commentators, Elizabeth Banks, they all comment, well, they haven't they haven't done anything, they haven't moved on.
I did this when I was in lab.
Right.
Well, right. They did the same set like 3 times, and so I guess that's it. Preconditions is the lack of progress.
Oh, and look, you've got the past, the signpost for, which of course is the movie. Right.
Yeah.
That's nice.
So we need another movie?
But I'm pleasantly pleased and surprised it was so short.
Now let's watch the sequel.
Right? I haven't seen it.
Me neither, and there's a third one coming
Yeah, so
next time.
make a lot of money.
Right, well, thank you guys.
Yeah.
Next month is
Super
Real
depressing.
Charmer, Sophie's Choice.
Oh.
If you thought this movie put you in a good mood, wait until next month,
Well, that's next month is Sophie's Choice.
which is 2 hours and 30 minutes.
Yes.
So
no, we'll start it on time.
we'll start at 5. Yeah. Okay.
But we will start it at 5.
The meeting will start at 7:30.
Yes.
Okay.
That's it.
That's it. Let me just turn it.
Let me save it.